This will be the last thing. Incident response. All right. So what if we do get hacked? Okay. So somebody hacked into some system. Now what if we were target and we found out we've been hacked? Normally you hear from your customers. So they're the ones that are going to tell you, look, my credit card number has been leaked and people are charging stuff on mine and you're the last place I visited, so I think it's you. You get enough of those calls, you're going to realize, hey, I'm screwed. So we normally hear from customers. You might hear from employees. It's worse if some blogger figures it out. We'll just put public exposure. The worst thing you can have is if it's just some blogger figures out. There's a security blogger that kind of lurks around on the underworld. And so he's the one actually that figured out that Target had gotten hacked because people were selling, huge credit card lists, and he sort of tracked down that they came out of Target. And he's got a whole list. I mean, there was not just Target, just in this last couple months. There's been hack after hack after hack. It's really sad. So you don't want the public exposure. Now, so if we got attacked, what do we do? How do we stop the attack? The thing to remember is you probably have a legal problem. And by legal, I mean you need to talk to the lawyers. Okay? And a lot of times you do, right? So if you detect an attack, customers start saying this and you're like, hey, we just got hacked. The worst thing you can do is clean it up. We need evidence. And more they are actually chasing these people down. It used to be that people would just get hacked and then they'd quietly not say anything because, as long as it didn't get out to the public, you would just pretend nothing happened, pay the few credit card bills you had to make up for and try to sweep it under the rug. But nowadays we want to track down Oh, yeah? It's ic3.gov. IC3? Oh. That's interesting. Oh, like ICCC? Okay. Or is it I3C or IC3? Okay. That's funny because it's W3C. Oh, yeah, never mind. So like C to the third power, all right. So we don't want to clean it up. We need to track down the bad guy. We'll put hacker here. We want to track him down. And more, we just assume we're going to get hacked. And so what we need is logs. And that's why I was telling you to log stuff that was successful. Let's see. Need evidence. Okay. Hopefully your computer will have a some security incident response team. That's what the RT stands for. Computer Security Incident Response Team. They have one at ODU, and it's the high up people. So like this chief technology officer, here it's the president, head of security, and the counsel, so the lawyer. Okay, so we need to talk to the big guys. and they need to deal with it, okay? So, again, we need logs. We might need some evidence. Don't touch anything. Where's that? Don't clean up. Yeah, if a customer calls and, hey, I think you've been hacked, then you say, yeah, get the customer information. This is so scary, isn't it? Get the customer information because you don't want to say, oh, I'm sorry, this is terrible. You just say, well, can you give me the details of the alleged incident? You know, that kind of stuff. Just speaking of this, I had a thing a while back. There was a toothpaste that made my mouth numb. It's now recalled, by the way. And so it was just this awful toothpaste. And I called up, and it was clearly like, this is toxic stuff. And so the person on the phone just would not, there was no thing. They were like, we're sorry you had a reaction, and, you know, all this stuff. So that's what you need to be, is that cagey person of like, yeah, well, I'm sorry you feel like you have a problem. Can we get your information? So it's sad, but eventually, you know, when you get into here, the PR people will take over and make them feel better, hopefully. It's not our job to make them feel better. Sadly, we're corporate. We protect our own. And then finally, the cleanup. So once it's okay, so you've heard about people that have like gotten arrested and they took their laptop and they never, you know, they didn't see the laptop for 3 months. Like, really expect to find this kind of stuff. You know, a server gets hacked, or a desktop gets attacked, like literally expect it to have to just take it off the network. And they're going to store it, and then, you know, the feds will come by. I don't know, the feds. You'll do like the forensic analysis, and there's totally stuff to do that. There's these neat little tools they have. So if they want to look at the hard drive, they'll like duplicate the hard drive. They have these special machines that just duplicate it, and then they'll analyze the duplicate, because they have to go to court and say, you know, I didn't touch the original, and this is what it says, you know, blah, blah, blah. Chain of evidence, all that. Okay. So the normal thing, again, the original stuff is probably never going to be used again, because the funny thing is, by the time you have it back, it's going to be obsolete and you'll have a new thing up anyway. So you do have backup and recovery. We'll put it in big letters, right? There are a fair amount of companies that don't have any backup and recovery procedures, and you need to be the person that does them. And it needs to be recovery, okay? Remember recovery? It's easy to make backups. I can make backups all day. Recovering them, this is what takes time. And you need to know how much time it takes, right? I mean, you all are backing up your files for your stuff, but have you ever thought about what would I have to do if my laptop completely crashed? Yes, I have a backup of my files, but now I have to cover all the settings, everything else. Have you ever done anyway, your company should do a rehearsal of a recovery, okay? The really good ones will. So here we are, you know, Hampton Roads. You're going to have some sort of offsite thing that is away from where the hurricane will be. And they'll everybody will drive up with the backup copies and restore them in some site in, I don't know, what's the closest high ground? It's pretty far away, isn't it? Going up past Williamsburg, right? So you're going to need to rehearse the recovery. So you do have a backup, right? Where are we at? So it's pretty normal that you're just going to have to start over. Okay? A reformat is is, what would we call this? Like the most, or the easiest. Okay. If you literally have the thing that you had before and you can just reformat and reinstall, that's probably the easiest thing you have to do. A lot of times, again, you're just going to have to acquire a new server and install everything else. And it's the settings kill you. I'll just note that. Yeah, you should have. Yeah, we'll just note that down. You should have a script of some sort that you should just be able to follow and say, here's all the settings on this server. And there's companies out there that are really good at this, and they'll have automated script programs. And so, when it's time to set up a new server, it's just a batch file. You just plug it in, command prompt, blah, 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 and then it sets up the whole thing. So it's easy to back up data, and I'll just note that 100 times. Data is so easy to back up user files. So I had this happen to me. Someone hacked my web server when I was at my last university, and they were storing their games. Thank goodness it was games and not something that had to be reported to the police. But I had to reformat. I had a backup of all the data files, but it was on a tape. That was in the tape days. That took a while to recover. It took a few hours to recover all the data, but the settings was probably double. It was probably 3, 4, 5 hours to put in all the web server settings, database settings, all this crazy stuff. Okay. Oh yeah. No, usually mirroring helps. That is, so here's my web server, and then I'm just going to have a copy. I'm going to shadow copy, right? And everything that happens here, I just duplicate it over here. So here's the problem. What happens if this one gets hacked and I duplicate everything over? They're both now compromised. And so what I'm going to end up doing is I have to remember like the snapshot and all that stuff. So that's why I was saying the snapshot was really cool, because the snapshot would do you'd have like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and let's say we got hacked right here, then I can go back to say this snapshot and put it. Yeah, well you do it, yeah. Well, the snapshots start to add up too. Yeah, the snapshot is like the coolest thing in the whole world. Is you can store the snapshots on another disk that's off-site, and then you go to off-site. But this is not a class on recovery. Okay, this also applies to natural disasters. That's why we are usually in charge of recovering from natural disasters. That's why I was saying sometimes we say this is assurance, okay? Assurance is also to protect you from natural disasters too. So that's the backup and recovery procedures, protecting from a natural disaster as well as recovering from it too. So that's why that's sort of a big deal. What was I going to say about that? Oh, business continuity. So business continuity. Number one, if we have to take down a server that got attacked, and the general rule, this is like the rule of thumb. If you're down for a week, we are out of business in a year, within a year. Okay? If you cannot get back up, you only have a few days to go before you're back up. So we'll just note that, okay? If you're down for a whole week, again, this is what we learned, and we learn this every time. There's like a Sandy or a Katrina, anything like that. Anyone who takes someone's business down, and it goes down for a week, they're going to be out of business. So what happens to your business in that week that you're down, that you're going to be out of business in a year? Yeah, your customers are just going to look elsewhere. And these are for companies that are relying on technology, right? I mean, if you're in Katrina and you're a business that's located, you're a retailer in a flooded area, all your customers are flooded too. And so they're a lot more likely to stick with you because they're stuck also. But if you're a printing business in a flooded area and all your customers are trying to call you and you're saying, hey, my systems are all down, then you're stuck, okay? So that's sort of the goal of, remember this, recovery. If you get taken out by someone hacking you, if you don't have at least rudimentary recovery procedures, you're screwed. This more applies to natural disasters, though. But we need to remember, for a natural disaster, we need to get the whole business back up. That is, we might need temporary offices. We might need communication of some sort. And the really good adaptable companies are immediately able to sort of switch to, their offices are taken out. So then we'll switch to using cell phones and communicating from home, set up some temporary center somewhere. Anyway, it's kind of fun.